for my body story, I was thinking a lot about influences on the body, like outside forces affecting the body and the way we view our bodies, and manifestations of like anxiety within the body, or how trauma causes certain like reactions within our bodies. So I started off just like with being born and thinking about the way that I grew up, and I had like this really wonderful parents in childhood, and I never really thought about my body. I had always been like very active and thin, just like the way I haven't really, I don't know, I didn't think about it. Sometimes people would be like, you're so thin, but I like never thought about it as a thing in my life. As a little girl growing up, I never like focused on how I looked. But like just through my family, we were very active, like doing things and taking trips and going places and then experiencing different food too, and like ate a lot of sweets and like really loved chicken fingers when I was little. And like I sort of had some like picky eating things, but I never thought too much about food or exercise. It was just like always in my life with what we were doing as a family. And then I guess around age 16, I like got my period. I was a really late bloomer, and I lived that summer at the beach with my friend who had like very strange control things about how she would eat. She'd be like, we can only eat at this time, and then we have to do this much, and then we can eat again. And I was sort of like mimicking her habits because I was living with her, and it made me just have like a whole different relation to these things, and it became this thing about like thinking of control, which was strange for me because I was never really raised to think about it in that way. So that affected me, but then like I was realizing these patterns were happening, so I was trying to stop that from affecting me and not think about it so much. So it was always a struggle of thinking about it too much or not enough, and then self-care comes into that too. And throughout high school I was running cross country, and you have to eat a lot more while you're running that many miles, and I like would forget or not be thinking about it or not feel hungry. So I was like not really practicing self-care. And then especially like my senior year of high school, that became an issue for me of like finding this balance of exercise and eating enough and self-care. And so like my senior year, I was struggling with running and with eating enough and all of those things. So it was like always this thought of mine at that time. And then I went away to college, and my first year of school, it was like really hard for me to adjust to not having someone to be like, here's your eating schedule. Because like I would wake up and eat breakfast, and then I would go to school, and a certain time was time for lunch, and then I knew I had to eat before cross country to run. And then I would come home and my parents would always cook dinner, and it was just like the schedule, and then we'd go out to ice cream or whatever it was. So I had this set schedule. And then in college, you didn't really have that, and being away from my family was really difficult for me. And like I felt very depressed while I was at school, and then that changes your motivation to exercise when you're feeling that way. So I had a lot of struggle being away from home and still being intuitive about, okay, like here's what I need now. Always finding that balance without fixating, I think, is a struggle that everyone has. So then, I guess at this point in my path, like at the end of my first year of school, I actually ended up leaving early because of like a traumatic experience. And then that really changed the way I thought of my body, because it was like an experience with sexual violence. So my body didn't feel like my own at that point, and I was struggling a lot with just my relation with my body, and then how like other people can affect your bodies. And I was thinking a lot about that experience. And like that summer I was in therapy, and we did this thing called EMDR, which is basically like what you're thinking about is how your body is manifesting these different experiences. So what I would do is like I'd talk about my experience, and you hold these sensors in your hands, at least the place where I did EMDR, and you're focusing on the sensors, and then like you can feel your body. Like I hold all my tension in my shoulders and in my chest, and so like how you manifest your anxiety about a certain experience, or just like thinking about trauma. So while I was there, I was thinking a lot about how these things were like affecting my body, because I would watch it as I was talking about it. And in this therapy, I was becoming like very focused on how I physically reacted to talking about this experience. And then like slowly as you talk through it, you just feel your body relaxing. So it was really interesting to me to think about trauma in relationship to how I viewed my body. And so I started thinking about that a lot, and I moved to New York after that and came to school here. And the experience of being in New York, of course, is like, there's just sensory overload. So you're thinking of all these things constantly, and it's just like, so it's weird to be in your body here, especially like with all the big buildings, and you feel so small sometimes, and you're just like, oh, well, what am I? It's really strange. And then there's so much thought on it. Just I find being here, you're surrounded by like all this media and all these different sources that are like, this is how you should be. So I started thinking about the body a lot more coming here, and within like all these different ways. So about the influences outside, and I remember like going to Fashions Night Out and just feeling so disgusted by all of these people, like, this is how you have to be, and they're all so serious and no one's smiling, and they're all so like tall and thin, and I was just like, I don't fit in here at all. Like, none of these people will look at me, and they're all just like focused on clothes, which was really strange to me. And then just other influences of being here, and physically walking everywhere too in the city, and all of these different things that affect us. And then I also, like, when I first came here, well, I always deal with like anxiety. I'm typically somewhat of an anxious person, so I think about again, like manifesting anxiety, and especially when you're in the city, there's nowhere to go if you're feeling a certain way. So I just have these like moments where I like am walking around all these huge buildings, and I feel like anxious or like upset about something, and then how like physically I'm like feeling so frantic with all of that's going on around me. And so just like our bodies in that way I think about a lot. And then what else did I have down? I guess just like I've just been continuing to think about balance in all of these ways, like in manifesting different anxieties in our bodies, and in knowing and being intuitive about when to exercise and what to eat, and with all of the forces that are around us, whether it be friends or family, or having this need to exercise because of what people are telling you or the media. So just all the sources that affect our bodies I've been thinking about a lot. And then this past semester I did this thing called like body of work, which I was telling you guys about, and basically I did a lot of readings about like the body in this class that I had, and then it was really affecting my other work in my poetry class. And just within doing this body of work, I talked about all these influences on the body, and then how the body is a place of how we access everything around us, and then trying to explain those experiences on a page, which is also like a body of work of sorts. So I was thinking a lot about how we're influenced by these things, and then what we present because of all those influences. So that is a lot of what, I know that was really all over the place, but just thinking a lot about how we're affected by outside forces, and then how we manifest those things, and especially in relation to anxiety and trauma.